Test, 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 test. Okay, we're recording. All right. So the first thing I want you guys to start with is take that Visio diagram that we have of our two CNC machines. We've got a couple of conveyor belts that come off those machines, and then they feed into a common conveyor belt. From there, one forklift is going to go get Entity 1 parts. The other forklift is going to go get Entity 2 parts and load them into Dock 1 and Dock 2 as appropriate or as applicable. So the first thing we'll do is, I got to look at these real quick here. Entity 1 parts arrive TRIA 5, 10, 15. Entity 2 parts arrive TRIA 6, 12, 14, all in minutes. So we'll come up here, and since all we're doing is we're really just modeling the transporter position or the transporting part of this, the conveying and distances. So we're going to create two parts. First part, I'll zoom back out, is we'll call this, I'm just going to call it Part 1 arrivals. So Part 1 arrivals with an expression, minutes, and TRIA 5, 10, 15. So hopefully you guys got that. So first thing is CNC 1 is putting out parts to our conveyor belts at an expression of 5, 10, 15 triangular distribution in minutes. And I'm going to change this. See where it says entity type over here? I'm actually going to call this Part 1. Okay? Now there's a couple of ways, because one of the things in this homework assignment was that you needed to have the two parts be distinctively different from each other, right? So like in Chuck's example, he had Christmas boxes and what was the other one?
Well, disc.
Yeah, they were floppy disks. Yep. So he had floppy disks and he had little packages flowing from the two different machines. Now there's a couple of different ways you can do that. One way you can do that is to put an assign block in, right? And you can assign an entity picture. But how you can, if you go down to the entity spreadsheet, you can click on the entity spreadsheet and you can actually say that Part 1, yep, Part 1 is going to be, and I actually kind of like that package one. So we'll do that. We'll do the packages like Chuck did there. So picture.package. Okay, so Part 1 is picture.package. And I can double click here and I can do a Part 2 if I want. I can call this Part 2. And instead of report, maybe I'll grab something truck. So I got packages and I've got trucks. Okay. And in your arrival blocks, you can pick the entity type, and the entity types now have entity pictures assigned to them. So you don't need to have an assign block for that particular purpose. You can. There's nothing wrong with it, but you don't need to have an assign block. So that's Part 1 arrivals and the entities that go with them. Then I'm going to create Part 2 arrivals. I'm going to double click on this one. Call this Part 2 arrivals. And now under entity type. Now one of the things you noticed maybe in the spreadsheet was it calls it the initial entity picture. Why does it call it the initial entity picture? Because it can change, right? You could go through processing and widgets become a truck, and a truck becomes a trailer full of trucks or whatever it is. So we'll do Part 2 on this one. We'll do an expression. It's in minutes again. TRIA. And this one I think is 6, 12, and 14 minutes. And I leave everything the same. So Part 2 arrivals now have an entity type of Part 2, which I assigned entity pictures in the entity spreadsheet. And this has an expression of TRIA 6, 12, 14 minutes. All right. Then let's think about what we got to do. So we have to convey these parts from here. They have to convey down to another location where a forklift's going to pick them up and move on with them. So you need the advanced transfer menu open. If you don't already have the advanced transfer menu open, you can always go into File, Template Panel, and you can attach the advanced transfer template. But I've already got it open. So the first thing I'm going to do, any guesses? First of all, a conveyor takes an entity from what to a what? Station to a station. So I've got to have stations to make this work. You guys agree with that? Yep. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and grab a station. And for the purpose of this, I noticed when I was looking at a couple of the homeworks that have been submitted, a lot of times like segment 1 will go from 1 to 3, and segment 2 will go from 2 to 4. And the reason why that is because you put station 1 here, station 2, station 3, station 4, right? So, and that's fine. I like to try to put the stations, up here for part 1, stations 1 and 2, and the stations, so you can actually plug all those in right now. There's station 1, there's station 2, there's station 3, there's station 4. It's auto-connecting, that's helpful. And now I know that the first conveyor, if I go down here and look at my conveyor belt that I've built in Visio, is I'm going to go from station 1 all the way down to station 2. And then from here I'm going to go to station 3 all the way down to station 4. You don't have to have different segments, okay? I know some people wanted to take it all to a common station here, like this one goes 1 to 2, and this one goes 3 to 2, and then then a common one that goes 2 to 4. You don't have to do that. You can do that. It makes it a little more complex, and it's going to work, but there's more that can go wrong too. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do 1 here, 2 here, 3 here, 4 there. And they'll still ride on the same conveyor. It doesn't make a difference. All right, so now to get a conveyor, I have 3 nodes associated with conveying. What are they? Access, convey, exit. So those are the 3 nodes I need to use. So the first one I'm going to use is access. I'm just going to throw these in. Convey and exit. There's my 3 nodes. Access, convey, and exit. And why does access have a T-bar above it? Yeah, because it has a queue. It has to wait until there's a cell on the conveyor belt where it can place its product. Okay? So access, convey, and exit. And I should be able to hook these up. Just like so. And this is where I can start to drill in here and look at some things. Like if I go into convey, I can see, I can give it's called convey 1. And I could call this, well, it gives me an option for conveyor 1. I like that. And it also gives me a destination station too, right? Like station 2. Okay. So convey 1, the conveyor name is conveyor 1. The destination station is station 2. I hit OK. Then I can go to access, and I can look in here, and I see access 1 is looking at conveyor number 1, which looks great. It needs 1 cell. What does that number of cells mean?
How many products can fit per?
Yeah, think about each.
How many openings on the conveyor belt?
Yeah. How many openings on the conveyor belt it's going to take up? So if the conveyor belt has 100 openings, it can hold 100 products. Then this is going to be one of those openings that it's going to consume. It means I can put 99 more items on that conveyor belt if I wanted to. All right, and the queue name is going to be access1.queue. Okay. And I don't know if I like the way I did this, but it's fine. I probably would have, knowing what I know now, I might have just built the one to completion, got it work, and then built the other one. But we can go ahead and start the other one now too. We can do an access. We can do a convey. And we can do an exit. I'll tell you what, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference, but I'd prefer to put station 2, then exit, You know, like I'm routing to that station, then I'm exiting the, I guess it doesn't matter. You're either routing to the station, then exiting the conveyor, or you're routing through the exit to get to the station. I guess it doesn't make a difference. You know, it's which came first, the chicken or the egg. It's going to work in either fashion. So then I'm going to hook those guys up. All right, so we'll go down to Access 2 now. In Access 2, this is one of the areas you can go wrong. You want to make sure that you pick Conveyor 2. And actually, I haven't built a Conveyor 2, so I'm actually going to go into my Convey icon and call this Conveyor 2. Now it will be good. And we need a destination station, which will be what? 4. So Convey 2, conveyor name's Conveyor 2, destination station is Station 4. Then when I go over to Access now, I'll see Conveyor 2 because I've created it now. Again, I'm only going to take up one cell. And Access 2, access2.queueue. That all looks good. Hit OK. I'm going to wire this guy up. Now, my recommendation to you when you're doing stuff like this is whatever you do, you know, build in steps. Don't try to take on the whole problem. If you take on the conveyors, like that's why I said I almost prefer just to do the one. Maybe just do the one conveyor with the one arrivals and only do that, and then do the next one, and then do the first forklift, then do the next forklift. Because otherwise you'll confuse yourself before you know it. So what I'm going to do right now, just so that I can play with this, I'm going to put a dispose icon here. I know that I'm not done with this model by any stretch, but for the purpose of building this thing, I want to start with this model. I want to just get the conveyor belts working, and that's it. Okay? And part arrivals are TRIA 5, 10, 15 minutes. I'm just making sure I'm still on minutes on everything. 6, 12, 14 minutes. All right, that all looks good. Am I going too fast? You guys okay? All right, trying to go nice and slow here. And now down here is where I want to route my entities here. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. What I can tell you is you can think about the size of your entities flowing down these little this flow chart here. They're going to be the same size down here. So you can always make it a little bigger, but the problem is once you place those segments, if you change it after that, now your segments aren't lining up, are they? So looks like about the right size, maybe just a hair bigger. That looks good to me. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I want to put in I want to route my segment. And be careful here. Route we've used before. Now we're going to use segments, and distances we'll use for our transporters. So right now I'm going to go to segment. I'm going to grab the segment tool, and it's going to say, okay, what station to what station? Now because I know that the first part is going to, and I know up there I had segment 1 to segment 2, I can leave that segment 1 to segment 2. The identifier, this is one of the common mistakes. You can't just leave it as segment 1. Okay? It needs to represent the conveyor segment that you're building. So it's important that you go down here and select Conveyor 1 segment. And then you'll notice you got the little tool up here for drawing a segment. So Conveyor 1 is going to start right here. I'm going to put a single click right here. Then I'm going to route across this conveyor. I'm going to do a single click here to make the corner. And you can do a couple if you want to try to curve the corner. Then I'm going to go down to the bottom of the conveyor belt. And I'm going to double click. And now I have my segment. Yep.
I don't know why the Visio popped up. It's
You double clicked on it.
Yeah, how do I get rid
You double clicked on it. So close the Visio window.
Well, you gotta click to the right there where you see a little bit of white.
Right here?
Yep, straight. Yep, there you go.
Oh, there it is. Okay, I'm good.
You get the segment in there? Throw that segment in there.
In that respect, we better do the snipping job.
So segment 1.
But the text is unreadable.
Yeah, so now I can always drill back into that if I want and see what I did. It's conveyor 1 segment going from station 1 to station 2. What does number of points represent? It represents the starting point in each corner. Starting, ending, and each corner that you make. So, I mean, if you get crazy and you're zigzagging back and forth, you might have 20 points on there. Okay? For this, it can be pretty simple. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do another segment. Segment again. This will be conveyor 2 segment. And the nice thing is, see what it's doing? It's defaulting to my stations. So now it's one less thing you can mess up. Yep. Yes, so there are 3 distinctive things. We can route entities, and when we route entities, we can route them by entity type. We can route them by entity priority. There's lots of different things. So that's more dealing with the type of the part or the priority of the part or things like that, like a rush part, something like that. A segment is a set path that doesn't change, meaning like a conveyor belt. Okay. The CNC machine number 1 always routes from station 1 to station 2. It never changes. Okay. And it always goes over this conveyor belt. The distance never changes. And then the third thing is the distance here. Distance is used for transporters, things like carts and forklifts, because transporters aren't locked into a conveyor belt path. You know, they might take the shortest path. They might go pick up wherever parts are available. The parts coming out of CNC machine 1, all they can do is go from this point on conveyor 1 to the end point on conveyor 1. They have no choice. And they're not going to be routed according to anything but moving from point A to point B. A transporter, on the other hand, has a distance associated with it. And it can actually go pick up parts. We'll use that for the forklifts in a minute. And then routing actually does it by sequence, or it does it by priority, or it does it by a lot of things. Routing typically doesn't have to, it doesn't have to be associated with a conveyor belt or a forklift or anything. Always think of segments when you think about conveyor belts, like segments of conveyors. Always think about distances when you're thinking about transporters, like forklifts and carts and things like that. And when you think of routing, think of parts that require certain sequences. Like I have to machine the part, deburr the part, then paint the part. But if it's this part, then I have to drill a hole, deburr, and then paint. So it varies by 3 different things. And it is a little confusing because they all look the same. When you draw in a segment or a route or a distance or even a network, which we haven't talked about yet, they're all going to look the same on your model. They just have different properties. When you drill in, they're going to be looking for different variables. Exactly right. Yep. So conveyor 2 segment is going to go from station 3 to station 4. So I've got my little segment tool up here. I'm going to click here. I'm going to drag. I'm going to set the corner. And then come down here, and I'm going to double click right down here. And you can always move it once you, be careful there. Yeah. You can accidentally move your whole background picture too, or open up Visio like Scott did there a minute if you're not careful. So now the good news is I've got this all set up, and I can make it bigger. If I want to get in here and look detail, I can make my model really, really big. Some of you guys that use SolidWorks, I see you do this all the time. You're using that scroll wheel in the middle to zoom in and zoom out. That's a good way to do it too. But I can always move some of these things around a little bit if I want. Like maybe I want them to kind of come off, at a little bit of an angle or something. I could do that. You can always hit undo if you grab the wrong thing. So anyways, but that looks good to me. So I know that those are going to come off those conveyor belts now. Now, if you didn't know anything else, at this point you might say, okay, well, I think I've got it all set up. I guarantee you probably don't, but, if you click in here, you're like station 1 to station 2. Yep, convey 1. This one goes to station 4, looks good. This one accesses a conveyor belt 1, waits for the conveyor, access conveyor belt 2. Looks good. This exits. Oh, we're missing something here, right? Because when I exit the conveyor belt, I need to free up that resource. And I'm not freeing up the conveyor belt. I'm freeing up that cell on the conveyor belt. So in this case, when I exit 1, I'm going to free up conveyor belt 1 for 1 cell. I utilized 1 cell when I was on there. I'm going to free up 1 cell when I exit the conveyor belt. I hit OK. I go down to exit 2. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to free up conveyor belt number 2 for 1 cell. I used up 1 cell when I accessed the conveyor belt. Now I'm going to relieve 1 cell when I leave the conveyor belt. All right. And now I'm going to come down here. At this point, I'm going to try to do a run on this and see what happens. For these, I highly recommend slowing down your model. I almost guarantee you we're going to have an error. Okay?
Almost.
Yeah, I can 99% sure. Ready? We're going to hit go. And what it says is the module has not been edited. Okay? Anybody have an idea without even drilling into this? Anybody have an idea where that is? The segment. Now, a nice thing again here is we can just click on edit. The reason why is Arena in previous versions, the first version of Arena I ever used, you had to do everything more from a spreadsheet point of view. You couldn't just drill in and have a pop-up window where you picked all your parameters. So some people got used to filling them in spreadsheets. Nowadays, we gotten used to drilling in and filling it in a window, which is fine. But not everything gets filled in a window. So if you click on edit, what it's going to do is it's going to bring up the segment menu here. Okay? And it says conveyor 1 segment. The beginning station is station 1. I have to add the next station, which is what? Station 2. And I can also talk about length here too. This really determines if the length is 1, I really have 1 cell. So what does that mean as far as my conveyor belt? How many parts can it run? 1 part. So I have this long 20-foot section conveyor belt, and everything's going to queue up because it only has 1 part on it at a time. So I could make this something like 10. So maybe I have 10 cells. Maybe it's a 10-foot belt, and I can put a unit every 1 foot on that belt. So I'm going to make that length 10. And then I'm going to hit OK. Then if I hit run again, guess what's going to happen again? Yeah, the other one's going to pop up. It says this module has not been edited. So we're going to go back into a segment menu, and it says, hey, conveyor belt 2 segment has not been edited. What's the beginning station for conveyor belt 2? 3. And we're going to add the next station, which is going to be 4. And I'm going to put length 10 again. Okay? Hit OK. Hit OK. Now, where else can you see that? Let me show you where else you can see that. Had you not gotten to that error, or had you remembered, you always could have gone into the segment menu here, the spreadsheet, and you can actually see exactly what we just did right here. The beginning station for under the segment spreadsheet, the name of conveyor 1 segment, beginning station, station 1, next station, station 2, length 10. Conveyor 2 segment, beginning station, station 3, next station, station 4, length 10. So I can also see those things there. The other thing, too, we have defined the conveyor, okay? We defined the conveyor, up here that we're going to utilize conveyor 1. But one of the things about this is nowhere up here does it give you a speed of the conveyor or anything like that again. Now, it may run this time. I don't know if it'll run. Let's find out. Yeah, I hope it'll run. Yeah, so there we go. Now we got parts. You can speed it up and watch your parts coming. And they're flowing on and off this conveyor belt. I don't know. If we pause this, if I pause this real quick, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 trucks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You can't see them, but 10 packages there. So I've got 10 packages and 10 trucks flowing over these conveyor belts.
Oh, I got error.
So errors, and you may get an error if you let it run for a while. It could potentially.
Reported errors.
What did it say?
A runtime error was detected at 10. At time 10.
Awesome. See ya.
Exit conveyor 2, 1 next.
What'd you
No
get?
cell are allocated to this entity.
No cells are allocated to this entity?
Yeah, that's the last line. Entity 2, a runtime error was detected at time
Take it.
10.0.
Take a peek at you real quick here. Did you come right away or did it come eventually?
Eventually.
Exit, conveyor 2. Oh, yeah. So here's what you got. Your exit right here. Conveyor 2, number cells 1. Station 4, station 4. Oh, I don't see it. Anybody else get any errors, or was it working for everyone? Exit 1? Let me see if I let mine run, if it'll cause the same error. Let me check it out. Let's check it out. So if I let mine run here, I'm working, huh? How many of you guys got an error on this? How many of you guys are working like me? Okay. How many of you guys got this error that they're talking about? Interesting. Let me pause my recording. All right, so we're going to jump right back into this thing now. So mine ran to completion, but what you should see when you run this is you should see parts coming down the conveyor belt. You know, and I essentially, and they're combining into one common group, kind of like a Y, where the two forks come together and they combine into one common conveyor belt. Now let me show you guys something though, because there's a couple things you can do. If you go into the conveyor, here, the conveyor spreadsheet, and some of you guys that aren't seeing as many maybe as you want to see or whatever, you can go into the conveyor spreadsheet, bring this up, and you can slow down and speed up, you know, the velocity of these items. So if I want to have 10 parts per hour, you know, I can make this 10 parts per hour. You know, again, I can see the cell size for each one, the accumulation length, the max cells occupied, all of that stuff. I'm not going to change any of that right now. I can also go into, so I went to 10 per hour for velocity. I can also go into segment, you know, and in here in the rows for next station, I can say, well, what's the length that I can bring in there? Maybe I bring in 5 now. 5 and 5 instead of 10 and 10. Now, mind you, all we're doing is change some parameters. If we go down here and run this again now, what we're going to see is it should change some things. Look at that. Now my items are flying. Why are they flying? I can't remember what I changed it to. What did I change it to? Was it 5 per hour? 10 per hour. So now I'm running at the same speed, but I'm running 10 per hour. But now I'm only allowing 5 to accumulate. Well, why aren't 5 accumulating? Because my arrivals, I'm moving faster than my arrivals, right? If my conveyor belt's moving faster than the parts that are arriving, I won't get 5 on the conveyor belt. You guys agree with that?
Yep.
That's one of the ways we can control queue length. You know, I mean, for this part, you know, it's kind of a bogus assignment because we're not really using real statistical data. But if we had real statistical data, we could look at the queue lengths and determine, boy, we need a faster conveyor, or we need more cells on the conveyor, we need something, you know, or we need more forklifts moving parts around. So I've got that working. I've got conveyor belts running. I've got parts coming down the conveyor belt. That all looks good. So the next thing that we would do is we'd come down here now and we'd say, okay, well, part 1, I want a forklift to bring you over here to dock 1. And part 2, I want a different forklift to bring you over to dock 2. And you could even use one forklift to do both parts. In this case, we know that these are coming way too fast. You know, we're either going to need to slow down production, or we're going to need to have more forklifts. So I'm going to have one forklift for each part. So what I'm going to do is, when I do this, I'm just going to start with one forklift, though. I'm going to come down here. Now, instead of exiting and going directly to dispose block, I'm going to delete these lines. Okay? And what I'm going to do, I kind of like doing it this way. I'm going to zoom out, so make it real small. I kind of like putting above and below. So I've got my conveyors here, and then I'm going to have, and actually, I'll move these over here, and I'll put the dispose block there. So I zoomed out just so I could kind of get an overview, you know, from 1,000 feet above it to see what it's going to look like here and try to keep my flow chart kind of organized. I can zoom right back in. And now I want to create my first forklift. So my first forklift, I'll do right here. Now I go back into my advanced transfer menu. And remember, access, convey, and exit are what controlled my conveyor. Notice something that we have not used. You can also do a start and stop of the conveyor belt too. So let's say that if you had a forklift and the parts were coming up to the queue for the forklift, but that area could only hold 10 parts, I might actually stop the conveyor belt and just let parts sit on the conveyor belt. Or I might stop it at the end of the shift. Or there could be other times that I would start and stop the conveyor. We didn't use that, but you can still do that. So what am I going to use for my transporters? I do. Yep, good call. Yeah, so before I put anything in, I got to put a station in. So I'm going to grab a station. This is going to wind up as station 5. And I'm going to grab another station. So they'll be sequential. Station 6. Yeah, this is, I just moved it. I just grabbed it from up above and moved it down here. So it was up there, and I just moved it down here. Yeah, it's all still the same stuff. We didn't change anything. But what I did do is I added a station 5, and I added a station 6.
7 and 8 too.
And you know what? I'm not going to add a 7 or 8 right now. I'm just going to try to get one forklift working because it's, you know, I would have preferred to have done that with the conveyor too, but it's fine. All right, so what are my nodes I need to get a conveyor or to get a forklift? Request. I request a transporter. Then what? Transport. And then what? Free. Yeah, it's very similar to access, convey, and exit, but it's request, transport, and free. Okay. And very similar to what we did here. I would put the free after the station. That's a good point. I would do it in that order. And you'll notice the convey and the transports, they don't have connectors on the right. Why is that? Because they're transporting. They're actually moving material from station to station. So, and honestly, you could even put station 5, you know, after request if you wanted to too. That might be more, you know. I guess not, because you can't put it outside the transport because you can't connect it. Yeah, so it could go here or it could go here. To me, it actually makes sense to be either location. Doesn't matter. All right, they're essentially the same. So now I'll connect those guys up. Boom. And boom. And I'm going to go into request. And I'm going to request a transporter. And transporter name, I'm going to call this forklift 1. And since we don't have any real statistical data for what we're doing here, it's really more of a problem in animation. I'm just going to go 1 per hour for a velocity. Okay. And the entity location is going to be the entity station. So what that means is it's going to go look to the station to go get the part, is what it's going to do. So it's going to go find it there. And the queue is going to be request1.queue. I hit OK. Transport. I'm going station 5 to station 6, so I'm going to go into transport. And now this is important where, again, you pick the transporter name, which is going to be forklift 1. Entity destination station. It's a station, and it's station 6. And again, for this particular version, I'm just going to pick a velocity of 1 per hour. Okay. Now you can also do guided transportation or transporter destination types. That's if I knew that I wanted a transporter that visited this station, this station, this station, always looking for parts, and then grabbing them and coming back to the dock or something. You could do that with that. All right, so I'm going to hit OK. Then station 6 is good. And then free, I'm going to free up the transporter forklift 1 is what I'm going to free up. And I'm going to hit OK. Unit number, you can have, like, it's kind of like serializing your transporters. You know, I have unit forklift, I already kind of serialized them myself with forklift 1. But I can track statistics on the use of each forklift too. So I could track time, how I could track the utilization of the forklift if I wanted to, if I had a unit in there and looking at those separately. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a dispose block in here. Double click. There's my station. And I'm going to run this one over here, this exit. I'm going to run it all the way over to the dispose block. The reason being, I'm not going to build that transporter yet. I'm just going to wait a few minutes and build that in a minute. Oh, I thought I could grab it. Well, oh well. I'll put the dispose block down there. There we go. Now it looks good for now. All right. So now we still have some work to do. We don't, first of all, we need to do our distance tool. So we're going to have to go into our distance tool. So now I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to say, okay, where is the forklift going to pick the parts up? Right here, and take them over into dock 1. So I'm going to grab my distance tool, click on that, and distance 1, this is another error that people typically make. It's going to default to distance 1, but we already have a transporter with a defined distance to it. So I want to make sure I have distance forklift 1.distance. Now, do you see how nice this is? When I build it little by little, look what it did for stations for me. It kept the stations right in track with where I'm building, didn't it? Instead of having to go in and say, is it 5 to 6? Is it 4 to 3? Is it 3 to 7? Some of you guys may have done that with segments and stations where you're, transporting from 3 to 7 or something because your numbers aren't lining up, and that's no big deal. So I'm going to go from 5 to 6, and now I've got my distance tool selected. I'm going to go from right here with a single click. I'm going to go down, single click to set a corner, and I'm going to double click at dock 1. And there's my forklift 1.distance. Now I can guarantee you there's 2 main things missing. Number 1, you're not ever going to see a forklift unless you put a transporter on that distance requirement. So anybody remember where we get the transporter from? Right up here, this little cart. See the little cart up here for transporter? Grab the transporter, click on it, and then identifier is going to be what? forklift 1. Under states, I'm going to, you know what, I'm going to leave, I usually delete inactive, and I usually only use busy and idle. And now here's the trouble. There's no forklifts in here. No forklifts in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and get the picture library for transporters. So I'm going to go into Open. And anybody remember where this is at? Yep, your C colon. You're going to have to find your program files. Just like going out and finding templates, right? And it's under Rockwell. And it's under Arena. And all of these things down at the bottom are your picture libraries. So basic process picture library, buildings, contact center, equipment, extras, faces, factory, general, machines. Which one of these I think I want? Vehicles. I think it's vehicles, isn't it? Yeah, vehicles. We want to pick the vehicles picture library. Open that up. When you get in there, you're going to see a nice forklift in there. This is the one I want right here. Okay. And I'm going to add that in for my idle. And I'm going to add that in to my busy. Okay. And it's attached to forklift 1 is the transporter identifier it's attached to. I'm going to hit OK.
Is it the same one you had for both of them?
Yep, same picture for both of them. To get that transporter? Right here, transporter. Now, I'm in the wrong one now, but that's fine. Yep.
Current picture has been modified. You want to see it?
So now I have my transporter selected. I've made it idle and busy. I attached it to the forklift 1 identifier. So we're good there. I think I can show you in here on mine too. Yeah, so you can see I have forklift 1 unit per hour, initial position status. I don't have that in there, but I'm going to leave that out for now. The other thing that's important for me is when the forklift is full, I want to show the entity on the forks. When the forklift is empty, I want to show the entity not on the forks. Anybody remember how we did that? What menu were you on? Oh, I got to go back into the... Oh, yeah. Thank you. So, yeah, thank you very much. So notice right here, my pointer tool here. It actually shows I've got a transporter tool selected right now. So what do I have to do? I have to draw in a forklift right there. And I can resize it a little bit if I want. So I have a forklift there. Once you have that forklift placed, you can always double click on it and drill back in and look at everything if I want to. Okay.
What did you do?
So what I did was I drew to place that forklift right there. Anybody want to see that part again?
Yeah.
So here's what I did. I went into transporter. I deleted inactive. I added that forklift in for idle. And I added that forklift in for busy. I attached it to forklift.
I did that.
And then when I hit OK, it brought up my... See how the tool now is a little transporter tool? I drew a box. And I placed my forklift there. Kind of like its parking spot is what it is. Okay? Now...
Shit.
Oh, no. Yeah, okay, here's a good idea right now. File.
Yeah.
Save as. And I'm going to throw this in my documents here. So wherever you're keeping all your arena files, call this, what was it, homework 13? It was 14?
You want to send it to me quick?
Yeah, I can do that.
Gone completely.
Homework 14, I'm going to call it homework 14 new.
Okay.
And I'll send this to Meyer, right?
Yeah. That
Yeah, that's what we're going to do next. Yep. What's that? Yeah, if you delete something, hit no. Hit no. Sometimes if you modify the library by accidentally deleting something, that's a possibility, and you don't really want to do that. All right, it's in your mailbox there, David. Should be soon anyways. All right, here's the other thing we need to do now. We need to go in here and we need to modify the ride point of our package there. Now I got to remember how we do that. Busy. Oh, double click on busy is how you do it. So the way you do that is when you're in here, so I'll go back to where I was here for a second. So now I've got my forklift placed here, right? If I double click on that forklift and see where it says busy, I want to do the ride point only on the busy, because only on the busy is when I'm moving parts, right? So I'm going to do busy, double click on that, and now once I'm in here, I'm going to go to object, ride point. Object, ride point. And then I'm going to draw a little, basically get this little pointer tool, the crosshairs, you draw a box. And you can move that box wherever you want. So I typically put it right about there. It doesn't let you resize it, which I wish it makes it look like it would, but it doesn't actually let you resize it. All you're really doing when you resize it is you're actually moving it. But what that determines is the ride point of that particular entity when a forklift is carrying it. So now I'm going to go ahead and hit close. Then I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Now I can tell you that your error that you're going to get is almost identical to the error we got last time. We drilled into a lot of things, but we didn't define a distance somewhere. If I go to run right now, what you're going to see is the module has not been edited. If you go to edit, it's going to tell you the distance module has not been edited. So I go in and I'm going to add a station for the distance module. Beginning station, this one's showing up wrong. What are they? 5 and 6, right? So beginning station 5 and ending station 6. Hit OK. Hit OK again. Now hopefully, fingers crossed here, if I go to run again, I see parts coming down. I see my forklift going over and taking parts. Now the only thing I don't like here is we're not actually showing a queue here at all, are we? Nope. It's like they're disappearing into space, and then the forklift is going and grabbing them and moving them back and forth. Let me look at something here real quick. If we go back up to our model, so here's our request. Do you see our request? Distance I just left at 1. Yeah, I just left it all at the... Here is my queue for the request of the forklift. You can actually, if you like, some people will do this. They'll grab this queue. You see the queue here? You can just grab it, pull it down onto your diagram, and you can actually position that queue however you want, like right next to where that guy's going to pick up. So now my queue for the request transporter is actually right next to where the transporter is going to pick up. Pretty darn cool, huh? So, one second. Let me run it once and show it off. So now you're going to see those parts queuing up. Do you see that? And you'll see that the forklift will go get them. Now I can make that queue as long as I want. If I want to make that queue longer, I can make that queue as long as I want. I could slow down my entities. I could speed up my forklift. But now as parts come, they're queuing up, waiting for a forklift transporter to come and get them. Maybe you want to speed up your transporter. So you go into your transporter here, and you could go in here, and instead of velocity of 1 per hour, maybe I make this guy 4 per hour. And now when I run him, My transporter should be quicker. Well, maybe not. Yeah, I'm not sure why he's not quicker. Hmm? I'm going to pause my video here because I think we're good for now. Uh-oh. Hello.
Oh, it's only going faster on the way back.
There it is.